Is Monster Hunter Wilds too easy? I've seen a lot of discussion about this, and a lot of people say that this is just the base game, and difficulty will come with DLCs, Master Rank, etc. But Title Update 1 has finally arrived, as well as High Rank Zoh Shia. Does it fix the game's difficulty issues? In other words, is Zoh Shia hard enough? But first, why are people complaining that Monster Hunter Wilds is too easy? Firstly, lots of people say that they have no problem clearing any of the hunts. The game is super generous with potions and tools, so they don't even find themselves dying a single time. And well, I guess you might argue that Monster Hunter isn't about clearing a hunt just one single time. It's about fighting them multiple times for rare materials so that you can eventually turn the monsters into a nice hat. But even that seems to have changed with Wilds. The drops are so plentiful that you barely even have to fight the monster to get everything you need. But for me, the most important part is moment-to-moment gameplay. The game is designed for you to fight the monsters over and over, and I find that a lot of the fun is in learning the fight and getting better at fighting certain monsters. You learn the monster's tells, you learn how to dodge its attacks, how to weave in blows in tiny openings, except you kinda don't have to. Let me explain. Throughout the entire series, after dealing a certain amount of damage, or dealing damage to body parts, the monster will fall over and present the player with an opportunity to do big, satisfying combos. In Wilds, there's also this brand new mechanic called wounds, where dealing damage will create wounds. You can break these wounds, and this will also stagger the monster. In short, the more damage you deal, the more often the monster trips, which makes sense. You're rewarded for playing well. But if you do too much damage, sometimes it feels like the monster spends the whole hunt just lying on the floor, and you don't even get to play the game anymore. And I know that some people might enjoy this, but I actually want to engage with the monsters, which is why I was cautiously optimistic for Zoh Shia. So visually and conceptually, Zoh Shia is super cool. The gradual angel to demon transformation is super neat, and overall it's a super cinematic experience. Like a lot of final bosses in Monster Hunter, it has a super nuke that will one-shot you, so you're forced to take cover behind, psych, this time the cover nukes you! Yeah, it looks safe here. It's not safe! It's not safe! I actually find it really funny that they trade players with Behemoth or Safi Jiva or even Jin Dahad in the very same game to take cover just to mess with us this time around. In Capcom's defense, they did give us a hint about it. Oh, did you miss it? It's this cutscene over here.
It's called Wilk. You just toss it into the fire.
See? The Wilk blows up! You should have remembered! Yeah, I didn't. But more importantly, how does high-rank Zoh Shia feel to fight? Zoh Shia has a whopping 48,600 HP in a solo hunt, which means it's actually quite difficult to reach the damage thresholds to trip him, which is very important, he hits back. In fact, he hit me so hard that I was struggling to clear him easily with every weapon. I failed a bunch of times. Dead! Quest failed? Yep. Oops. What? Wait. No! Sorry, bad gamer. I figured it would be better to try to understand his moveset with my favorite weapon first, the hunting horn. So, Zoh Shia has 3 phases, and as those phases progress, he becomes increasingly aggressive. But even with my preferred weapon, I was having a lot of trouble with the giant hurt boxes and the fact that I couldn't quite seem to figure out when it was safe to attack. But as I became more familiar with it, I started figuring out which moves could chain into other moves. And it was really satisfying for me to learn where it was safe for me to stand and when I should start moving to avoid my least favorite move, the fire vomits. See, I hate this attack because as a hunting horn player, I just have to get out of the way and I don't have any sort of special parry or evade to just magically stand in it. Cheaters. Okay, so one thing I think was pretty well thought out about this fight is that if you want to clear it safely but more slowly, it's actually pretty safe to just stand at its tail and wail away. The only attack you have to worry about is this super slow tail whip. It's great for players who can't or don't feel like dealing with all of this nonsense. Learning the special mechanics about the fight was also super helpful. For example, you can use these pods to blow up the Wilk crystals for extra damage or make it easier to KO, or drop these big rocks on it. If you do enough damage to the wing arms, there's a special break that also does a big chunk of health. However, most people don't actually experience the fight in this way. Most people prefer to hunt with friends or with strangers in SOS. In a 4-player fight, Zoh Shia has a whopping 130,000 total health, approximately. And that sounds like a lot. But then you realize that a lot of these special mechanics do percent health damage. The rock does 5%, and the special wing arm breaks do 2%. And getting familiar with these mechanics led to a familiar sight. So it's still spending a bit too long doing a punching bag impersonation for my taste. And by the way, there's something a little different about Zoh Shia's health scaling in multiplayer fights. I said it has around 130,000 health, which is 2.7 times its solo health. But most monsters only have 2.4 health scaling for 4 players. Does that mean that Capcom is planning on making multiplayer fights more difficult? Because this is very encouraging and a great step in the right direction. But here's something I've kind of been wondering though, like why are we even talking about difficulty in the first place? I don't think Monster Hunter is necessarily designed to be super hard to begin with, but I think the success of World and the increasing popularity of the series overall has caused some cross-pollination with some Souls-like fans who enjoy slower, more deliberate, challenging combat. But something I've also been wondering is, does Monster Hunter even need to be difficult? Is difficulty something that is necessarily good? Now, I'm not saying this because I'm bad at games, which is true, but besides the point. So if I think back to a really difficult video game experience I had, I think about playing Diablo 3 back in the day. Take a look at this.
Send a message me saying, watching stream, those trans mods, LOL.
Holy! I'm dead.
Difficult? Yes. Fun? Most people would say probably not. Personally, I find that considering difficulty in a vacuum without context is not that useful, and I prefer to think of it more as a tool that game developers can use to adjust a player's experience. It actually provides a bit of friction, and the struggle of overcoming this challenge makes the narrative feel more impactful or gives the player a great sense of achievement after overcoming it. If it's too much though, then players get frustrated and they just churn out. Too little though, and they won't feel engaged. So you need an appropriate amount of difficulty. But the hard thing is that what's appropriate is different for literally everybody. Everyone has a different amount of experience with various game genres. I think a good analogy maybe is spicy food. A little bit of spice often enhances and elevates an already really good dish. But everyone has different spice tolerances. So the developers have to find a spice level that works for as many people as possible because, remember, games are made to make money. They have to be palatable to a wide audience. But everyone has different spice tolerances. So in order to make their dish tasty for as many people as possible, developers sometimes include things like difficulty settings or tools to help you. So in Monster Hunter, you can use traps or flash bombs, for instance. And if you're a really intense sort of person and you find most dishes simply aren't spicy enough for you, you can even add your own hot sauce. You could try to challenge yourself by using weaker armor and weapons, for example. You can do a hitless run. In my case, I challenged myself to try to clear Arkveld in under 4 minutes for every weapon. I even made a video about it, so check that out. Maybe I'll try something similar for Zoh Shia too. You might be thinking that 4 minutes isn't exactly a very long time to be hunting a monster. And you'd be right. I really like the combat in Monster Hunter. I think the hunts are really fun and really fluid. I just wish that the monsters had a little bit more HP so I could enjoy the hunt for longer. But Director Tokuda said something in the end of May update that leaves me optimistic. It says, each of these monsters have various behind-the-scenes adjustments to make them more resilient, such as increased health, resistance to wounding, and tweaks to multiplayer scaling. So I'm really excited for future updates. But still, I think the game is hard enough as it is because does anyone actually understand how the UX works in this game? Oh, did you want to play with a friend? Easy, join their squad. Wait, or is it lobby? Wait, I know, it's link party. Oh, or is it an environment link? Wait, you can't join quests in an environment link. How does any of these work? Okay, anyway, subscribe, bye.